Hello, everyone. This is Craig from NBS History doing another loose episode. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to call these. I think last time I called it This Week in History. This isn't one of my more historic episodes. This is going to be based in the Tolkienverse because if I haven't already said yet, I'm a horrid Tolkien fan and I've read all I can and I love the Legendarium. And this episode is on a very curious character that people who are not so knowledgeable of the extended Legendarium probably wouldn't know about. It is Tevildo, who was the original forerunner for the Dark Lord Sauron. Now, I know those who've actually read the Lost Tales extensively in the history of Middle Earth are probably going to be screaming about things that I'm going to say and how I'm taking it wrongly or not interpreting it right, but I'm going to try and do this organically and loose. I have quite a few links up, and forgive me for using some Wikipedia pages, but unfortunately, I don't have the e-copies of any of these books. I only have hard copies because I'm a true Tolkien fan, and I just don't have it on hand. So I have no other way to kind of show and reference parts of the story. Stories, mind you. And before I get into it, I think I'm going to try and explain the fascination behind this odd character. You're probably thinking to yourself right now, Sauron was a cat. How is this possible? So let's go back to when Tolkien was, for the better part of his life, writing this grand world, his universe. And what was published, what wasn't published, what were just notes, and what later on his kids, such as Christopher, went on to publish in other works that are, let's say, for lack of better words, not canon. And Tevildo is one of them. Much like characters like Ungoliant, the story of Tevildo evolved. He was written in, written out, written as a different character, written back in, and then eventually he becomes Sauron. That's the only way to describe it. If you want examples of how this happens in Tolkien literature, look at the character like the Elf King in The Hobbit. When Tolkien was writing this character originally, he didn't have a name in mind, and he didn't really know per se who this character was. But this character is linked to, as we know, the Greater Legendarium. He's a very important character, of course. And things like Gondolin are referenced even in The Hobbit, but he hadn't written everything about this place yet. But anyways, I'm getting off track. Tevildo was the Prince of Cats. I have here, he was a mighty cat, coal black and evil to look upon. His eyes were long and very narrow, and slanted, gleamed both red and green, with great grey whiskers that were stout and sharp as needles. His purr was like the roll of drums, and a growl like thunder. In the tale of Tinúviel, I think I'm saying that wrong, I'm sorry. Tinúviel, mind you, is actually the precursor, and I'm just going to shut off my Facebook there, sorry about that. Tinúviel is a precursor to Lúthien. Probably even saying that wrong. So the tale of Beren and Lúthien was actually the tale of Beren and Tinúviel originally. And this is where Tevildo comes into it. Tevildo, if you know this story, Beren and Lúthien, Tevildo takes the place of Sauron. So as we had Sauron, the Lord of Werewolves, who fought the great dog Huan, now we have Tevildo, the Lord of Cats, who fought the dog. It kind of works out, as you can see. It seems that Tolkien had a cat versus dog theme and actually a few other pieces of his works. Anyways, to carry on, Tevildo was the mightiest of cats, and he actually had large cats that were, I guess you would call them his servants. Yes, because he was a servant of Melko, as he was referred to back then, not Melkor, Morgoth for other people who know of him. And he had a kitchen for some reason, which is a very strange piece of all of this. I'll actually bring up some of the links here. If you go into, where's my pictures? Wikipedia's. I'm sorry, I know it's not very good of me. You can see here it talks of some of the things I have said. He had a great collar of gold, which gave him power and empowered the other cats to make them large. Some a magic that was produced by Melkor. One sec, my poor little bird. What's a snack? So he's a servant of Melkor, and during the story of Beren and Tinúviel, keep trying to say Lúthien, it's really hard. Beren is captured, like he is in the other story, by the forces of Melkor, and Melkor sends him to, as I think it said here, the kitchen, which is being controlled by Tevildo. Oh, here, and it also mentions this. Okay, this character. Okay, so Tevildo, sorry, was replaced by a wizard or necromancer named Thu, who later becomes Sauron. Also, this is getting very confusing, I'm sure for you. There's two characters. These are all ideas, and Tolkien didn't know where he was going with this at the beginning, but then he created the Dark Lord Sauron out of all of this, who becomes the Lord of Werewolves, the Lord of the Rings, etc., etc. Anyways, Beren is captured. He has to work under Tevildo in the kitchen, and he's abused until Tinúviel and Huan come to the rescue, similar to the story we all know from the Silmarillion. And they steal the Silmarils and try to escape, similar to the story. And upon the bridge, instead of the Lord of Werewolves being defeated by Huan and his other werewolf buddies, I'm just gonna say it's a really strange thing that Sauron in this story decides to send other werewolves that are weaker than the strongest ones he has that he sends later on to just, I guess, die to Huan. It really didn't make a lot of sense. Anyways, in this story, it's Tevildo who gets defeated. And as a result, Tevildo loses his collar as Huan takes it, and thus all the other cats, I guess, just go off. They're now regular sized or smaller, and this greatly angers Melkor, and there's the Great Flight, and the rest of the story is kind of similar to what we saw in the Silmarillion. So let's look more into Tevildo and the character of Thu. Thu, in an essence, replaces the Necromancer you would have heard of in the Hobbit and renditions of it in the beginning stage when he had first written it, because the Hobbit was rewritten about I think it was in the 50s to match more of the Lord of the Rings, and also there was a lot of continuity errors because he wanted to match his greater legendarium. He had made mentions to places like Gondolin and such, and it just didn't work out, so he had to change things. Going into more wiki pages, as we see the fascinating little painting of this cat. Let's look at it again. Oh, it's very interesting to think of a large cat with a golden collar. I'm just trying to imagine if this was the original character and they went with this in the series and they made films, this would have been quite funny. Okay, so here, the tale of Tinúviel. Already summarized it, which you can read in the Book of Lost Tales Part 2, volumes of the History of Middle-earth, which there are so many. I have barely touched. I, myself, as much as I would love to say I'm a Tolkien scholar, I just do not have enough under my belt. I haven't read most of the History of the Middle-earth. I've read quite a lot, but not enough. So as you can see, the story of Lúthien is actually Tinúviel, etc., etc. First lasting version was written in 1917. It's quite early. And those who haven't actually read this tale, do read it. It's quite beautiful, and there's a lot of meaning behind it, especially for Tolkien and his wife. Okay, so this wiki page just kind of announces the characters you see. Yeah, Thingol was originally Tinwillant. Tinwillant. I'm saying this all wrong, so sorry. And I think Glaurung. Yeah, Glaurung is in this. Who's Glorund, who becomes Glaurung. Giants and Umanyan, doorkeeper. So there was a cat doorkeeper. Oh, Gwendoline. Yeah, so that was Melian's first name before he had changed that around. An interesting character, Melian. No one listens to her. Yet she's probably the most knowledgeable person in most of the stories. And here I had opened up this link. This goes more into the Beren and Lúthien story. Lost accounts of and to the complete narrative to Tevildo. And it basically says a lot of what I said. Oh, yeah, Beren was originally going to be a gnome. I didn't mention that. So Tolkien changed that around because that messes completely with the legendarium if you think about it, involving gnomes and wicked dwarves. I think the story of Mim wouldn't really make too much sense based off of that. Yes, so I covered quite a bit of this. What else is to be said about this great black cat? I think I could look into some of the actual text I have here. So here, I believe this is the scene where Juan is fighting him upon the bridge. We have some dialogue, which is rather humorous, mind you, in Tolkien's earlier works. So this is Tevildo. I'm not going to do a cat voice. I'll let you read for yourself a bit. Yeah, so he has been injured, and you can get this online, mind you. And as for the cursed elf, at this point, Beren was also rewritten as an elf, and then he becomes a man later on. So all the characters went through a lot of evolutionary stages. It's fascinating how Tolkien had to rewrite everything so it could meet the levels he wanted, I guess, for his legendarium. And you're probably wondering, why am I ranting about this? I just thought this was interesting because I looked up this character just at some point because I was curious, and there's really nothing on YouTube about him. There's nothing much even in the Wikipedia pages because he's more or less reminiscent of just a few notes. And I have some cute renditions of what the great Lord of the Prince of Cats or Lord of Cats would look like. And interestingly enough, he was a card, so they thought to at least give him some accreditation in the card game. Oops, this one's not coming out. This was a rendition of Thu. Yes, the werewolf, as you can see there. I don't have Pinterest account. That Thu would have been the Lord of Werewolves, who later on becomes Sauron. Needless to say, in all this, it's I just wanted to bring this up because I thought it was just a curious thing, and it would be cute to look into some of the forgotten parts of Tolkien's world, and to bring more discussion. Let's see what people think. Maybe get some more comments if you like this video, just to see interesting things that were laid on the cutting room floor. Would this have made the story in the Legendarium worse? I'm gonna argue, yeah. It's more in tune with the childish nature of The Hobbit, but the idea of the Prince of Cats is it's just a little sad. And you're probably here just thirsty for any more information, but there's not so much I can give you. He had a golden collar, not too much is said about it. It gave him powers. He had a magical house that falls apart. Don't know what to say about that. He had cat warriors uh, that were all servants to Melkor later on. They all were thrown away later as Morgoth was angry when he had lost his collar, which is just really trying to imagine Melkor just pointing a finger at his cat. This is just so funny. Huan was known as Captain of Dogs. Uh, let's see what else I have here. Just references to dogs in Tolkien's work. There were dogs in the House of Bjorn in The Hobbit. Farmer Maggot's 3 dogs are mentioned. So Tolkien had some kind of narrative for cats and dogs. He doesn't seem to be too fond of cats, mind you. And cats are very rarely found in any of Tolkien's work. And I think that's all I can really say about Tevildo, the Prince of Cats. Let's see. To give a bit more information. There's not too much. So originally we had the Prince of Cats. The Prince of Cats gets reworked to be Thu, who was thought to be a wizard or necromancer. When you look at The Hobbit, you understand that this character evolves to become Sauron, but The Hobbit was not connected to Lord of the Rings because Tolkien didn't have any conception in his head for Lord of the Rings. While he had his greater story for his Legendarium, the Silmarillion and such, in the background of The Hobbit, certainly in the first edition, he had no idea about what he was going to do later. So when he reworked The Hobbit in the 50s and wrote some things in, it matches up more, and you get more of an understanding of, okay, the Necromancer, this is Sauron, and the Elf King, it's Thranduil and such. But much like the works we're seeing here from the Lost Tales, it's really scattered. This is a man who wrote from majority of his life, and he made this fantastic world that we all love and enjoy, I hope, for you as well. And we should just pay homage to every piece we can find, and we should really nitpick and find the smaller things, because They have interesting backgrounds. And I will see if I can find some more things involving Tolkien's work later. If you haven't already, I would love if you could like or subscribe. It would help greatly. We're a small channel, and I hope to see you later. This has been MBS History.
Really,